In the early 1700s, Britain was an ambitious island nation, poised on the edge of dramatic transformation. Its green hills and rugged coastlines belied a restless energy as the people of England, Scotland and Wales looked outward to the world beyond their shores. The dawn of the 18th century found Britain at a crossroads, emerging from centuries of internal strife, and now ready to assert itself on the global stage. In 1707, the Act of Union brought England and Scotland together, forming the Kingdom of Great Britain. This unification was more than a political agreement. It was a turning point that set the stage for a new era of cooperation, shared ambition, and national identity. The British flag, a symbol of this union, began to fly over ships, government buildings, and distant colonies, marking the birth of a powerful new nation. London, the heart of this new kingdom, thrived as a global trade hub. Its docks bustled with activity as ships arrived from the Caribbean, the Americas, Africa, and Asia, unloading goods like sugar, tobacco, tea, coffee, and fine textiles. Merchants, sailors, and dock workers filled the city's streets, their lives intertwined with the fortunes of empire. The wealth pouring into London fueled not only the city's growth, but also the rise of a new merchant class, eager to invest in trade and industry. The Royal Navy, the pride of Britain, patrolled the world's oceans, protecting these vital trade routes. Its powerful ships deterred pirates and rival nations alike, ensuring that British goods could flow freely and safely. The Navy's strength was a cornerstone of Britain's growing wealth and influence, allowing the nation to project power far beyond its own shores. But Britain was not alone in its ambitions. Rivalry with France, another great European power, fueled a fierce global competition for colonies, resources, and influence. Across the Americas, Africa, and Asia, British and French interests clashed, leading to a series of wars and skirmishes that would shape the destinies of both empires. The struggle for supremacy was not just about land, but about control of the world's wealth and future. At home, Britain's stable political system set it apart from many of its rivals. The Parliament, with its traditions of debate and lawmaking, encouraged investment, innovation, and the rule of law. This stability attracted entrepreneurs and inventors who found in Britain a fertile ground for new ideas and enterprises. The seeds of the Industrial Revolution were being sown in these very years, as inventors tinkered with machines and investors funded new ventures. Cities across Britain grew rapidly, drawing people from the countryside with promises of opportunity and prosperity. The population swelled as workers, artisans, and families sought better lives in the bustling urban centers. New industries sprang up, and the face of Britain began to change, with crowded streets, new buildings, and a sense of restless possibility in the air. Meanwhile, explorers like Captain James Cook set sail into the unknown, expanding British influence to the farthest corners of the globe. Their voyages brought back not only new lands and resources, but also knowledge, maps, and stories that inspired further exploration and ambition. The spirit of discovery became a hallmark of the British Age. Trading companies, most notably the East India Company, operated as powerful entities in their own right. These organizations managed vast territories, negotiated with foreign rulers, and amassed enormous fortunes. Their influence extended from the boardrooms of London to the markets of India and beyond, shaping the destinies of millions. Yet the ambitions of these companies often entangled Britain in new conflicts. Battles were fought not only with rival European powers, but also with local rulers and populations resisting foreign control. The pursuit of profit and power brought both glory and controversy, as Britain's reach extended ever further. By the end of the 18th century, the stage was set for a dramatic clash of empires. The choices made in these years would shape the next century, laying the foundations for Britain's rise as a global superpower, and for the challenges and conflicts that would follow. The world was changing, and Britain stood at the very heart of that transformation. The 7 Years' War, spanning from 1756 to 1763, was a monumental global conflict that reshaped the balance of power across continents. It was a struggle for imperial supremacy, involving most of the great powers of the time. The war was fought not only in Europe, but also in North America, the Caribbean, West Africa, India, and the Philippines. This extensive conflict is often considered the first true world war, as it involved battles on multiple continents and had far-reaching consequences for the future of many nations. Britain, under the astute leadership of William Pitt the Elder, made significant investments in the war effort. Pitt's strategic vision was to focus on colonial expansion and naval dominance, which he believed would secure Britain's future as a global power. His policies led to increased military spending and the deployment of British forces to key theaters of war. Pitt's determination and strategic foresight were instrumental in turning the tide of the war in Britain's favor, particularly in the colonies where the stakes were incredibly high. In North America, British forces achieved significant victories that shifted the momentum of the war. One of the most pivotal battles was the Battle of the Plains of Abraham in 1759, where British troops, under the command of General James Wolfe, defeated the French forces near Quebec City. This victory was crucial as it led to the British capture of Quebec, a major turning point in the war. The success in North America was a testament to Britain's military strategy and the bravery of its soldiers, which ultimately paved the way for British dominance in the region. Meanwhile, in India, the British East India Company, led by the formidable Robert Clive, was making significant strides against French interests. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 was a decisive victory for the British, where Clive's forces defeated the Nawab of Bengal and his French allies. This victory not only secured British control over Bengal, but also marked the beginning of British dominance in India. The success in India was a critical component of Britain's overall strategy, as it weakened French influence and expanded British territorial control in the subcontinent. The culmination of these efforts was the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1763, which confirmed Britain's triumph in the war. As a result of the treaty, Britain gained significant territories, including Canada from France and Florida from Spain, while also solidifying its control over India. These territorial gains marked a new era of British imperial expansion, establishing Britain as the preeminent global power. However, the victory came at a cost, as the war had drained Britain's finances and left the country with a substantial debt. The financial burden of the war was immense, with Britain incurring a massive debt that would have long-lasting implications. The cost of maintaining and defending the newly acquired territories added to the financial strain. The British government faced the challenge of managing this debt while also addressing the needs of its expanding empire. This financial pressure would eventually lead to increased taxation and economic policies that would stir unrest in the American colonies. The management of the new empire and its associated costs soon led to a crisis in the American colonies. The British government's attempts to raise revenue through taxes, such as the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts, were met with resistance and resentment from the colonists. This tension would eventually escalate into the American Revolution, a conflict that would challenge British authority and reshape the future of the American continent. The 7 Years' War, while a victory for Britain, set the stage for new challenges and conflicts that would continue to shape the world. Post-war, Britain's relationship with its American colonies soured over new taxes. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," united colonists against British rule. Protests escalated, leading to events like the Boston Tea Party. The American Revolutionary War began in 1775, with George Washington leading the Continental Army. The American victory at Saratoga brought France into the war, tipping the balance. The war ended in 1781 with the British defeat at Yorktown. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 recognized American independence, forcing Britain to reassess its imperial policies. The loss of America shifted Britain's focus to India, where the East India Company expanded its influence. The company exploited the decline of the Mughal Empire, using divide-and-rule tactics. India provided valuable goods like cotton and opium, fueling British wealth. The opium trade with China, though profitable, led to addiction and conflict. The British government increasingly involved itself in the company's affairs, blurring lines between state and corporation. This new empire in India was based on rule and exploitation, not settlement. After the American defeat, William Pitt the Younger became Prime Minister in 1783. He focused on financial reform, introducing new taxes and a sinking fund to reduce debt. Pitt's policies stabilized the economy and restored confidence. He signed a commercial treaty with France and supported British expansion in India. The first British penal colony was established in Australia in 1788. Pitt rebuilt the Royal Navy, preparing Britain for future challenges. His leadership set the stage for the Industrial Revolution and Britain's Resurgence. The French Revolution and Napoleon's rise plunged Europe into war. Napoleon sought to crush Britain, but the Royal Navy's victory at Trafalgar in 1805 ensured British naval supremacy. Unable to invade, Napoleon's continental system aimed to strangle British trade. The system failed as Britain continued trading globally. The war ended at Waterloo in 1815, with Britain emerging as the leading global power. Its navy was supreme, and its empire secure. While Britain fought Napoleon, the Industrial Revolution transformed the nation. Innovations like the steam engine revolutionized production and transport. Railways accelerated the movement of goods, fueling economic growth. Britain, rich in coal and iron, became the world's workshop. The empire provided raw materials and markets for British goods. Industrialization boosted Britain's economic and military power, funding its global dominance. Queen Victoria's reign, beginning in 1837 and lasting until 1901, marked the absolute zenith of British imperial power. Under her rule, the British Empire transformed from a collection of overseas colonies into the largest and most influential global power the world had ever seen. The Victorian era became synonymous with progress, innovation, and a sense of destiny, as Britain's reach extended to every corner of the globe. The image of Queen Victoria herself became a symbol of stability, authority, and imperial ambition, her likeness found in palaces, coins, and official portraits across continents. The empire expanded at a breathtaking pace, eventually covering nearly a quarter of the world's landmass and ruling over a quarter of its population. From the sun-drenched Caribbean islands to the vast plains of Canada, from the bustling cities of India to the remote outposts in Africa and the Pacific, British influence was everywhere. The phrase, "the sun never sets on the British Empire," became a reality, as red marked the map in every time zone. This expansion was driven by a mix of economic ambition, military might, and a belief in Britain's global mission. In India, British rule was dramatically solidified after the violent upheaval of the 1857 rebellion, also known as the First War of Independence. The British Crown took direct control, replacing the East India Company, and began reshaping Indian society, law, and infrastructure. Railways, telegraphs, and new administrative systems were introduced, binding the vast subcontinent more tightly to London's will. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered, as British policies often clashed with local traditions and aspirations. In Africa, the British Empire seized vast territories through a combination of military conquest, strategic treaties, and relentless exploration. The so-called scramble for Africa saw Britain competing with other European powers to claim land and resources. British officials negotiated with, and often coerced, local leaders, redrawing borders and establishing new colonies from Egypt to South Africa. The construction of railways and ports facilitated the extraction of valuable minerals and agricultural products, forever altering the continent's landscape and societies. The vast empire was managed by a surprisingly small number of British officials, who governed millions with a mix of bureaucracy, military force, and alliances with local elites. These administrators, often educated in elite British schools, believed deeply in their own superiority and the righteousness of their mission. They imposed British laws, languages, and customs, reshaping societies in their own image, while maintaining strict control over political and economic life. Many Britons, from missionaries to teachers, believed it was their sacred duty to civilize the world. They spread British culture, language, and Christianity, founding schools, churches, and newspapers in distant lands. This civilizing mission was often used to justify imperial rule, presenting it as a benevolent force bringing progress and enlightenment, even as it disrupted traditional ways of life and imposed foreign values. For many in Britain, the empire was a source of immense national pride. It provided jobs in shipping, trade, and administration, and gave ordinary people a sense of belonging to something vast and powerful. Empire Day was celebrated with parades and patriotic songs, and stories of imperial adventure filled newspapers and novels. The British Empire shaped not only the world, but also the very identity of the people who called themselves British. As the 19th century ended, the British Empire seemed at its height. However, new challenges emerged as other nations industrialized. The costly Boer War exposed military weaknesses and tarnished Britain's reputation. Nationalist movements within the empire demanded greater autonomy. At home, social issues and inequality fueled unrest. Britain's dominance was waning, setting the stage for 20th century upheavals.